So we have our two things that we need, I guess 3 or 4 things. I got a brush, that's good for painting. And then I have my original photo. The original photograph does have a lot of good information on it, so I can use that as a guide. And then I also have my detailed drawing of what it's supposed to be looking like as well. So on those. So I'm just going to pick one, and I'm going to start to create the painting on it on the application, and we'll kind of see how it goes on this one. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on the left side because I'm right-handed, and so if I paint in this direction, maybe that'll work out better. I don't know on things that I'm going to have. So we remember last time we had our paints all wrapped up in the cellophane, and it like I said, it will unwrap pretty easy for us once we get it figured out. And we don't have to wrap it tight, right? We decided that already. And so we're just going to undo a little bit and a little bit, and it'll be mostly sealed up. And then we do this, right? And when it unwinds completely, lo and behold, we have paint ready to go, ready for application. Okay. So I'm going to slide this way just a little bit, maybe, and I'm going to put my paints over here so we have a good view of everything I'm going to do. The rule is we start with the dark paint first. We do the dark stuff, we add that first, and then we come in and we gradually go lighter when we add our paints on there. And then we can blend them as we go along. That's kind of the deal. Now with 5 values on that one, if I did a section and a section and a section, it would look okay and your eyes would blend it fairly well, and you can do that for sure. But you can also blend things as they're going along. So I'm looking at the original photo here too, and the shadow on the cube is a little lighter than the piece here. And so this side over here this has got to be our darker side, right? So I'm going to jump right on in. I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to get some dark blue on it. The nice thing about this, I'm going to put this around this way, and remember the photo's up here, so I'm looking at that too. But right here is where my blue is, and I can just come in using the tip of the brush again and the side on that one. The dark blue is pretty cool. It has almost a little bit of a transparent quality to it, though. Some of the stuff right out of the tube, which is really kind of interesting to me as we go along here. And this I'm just kind of putting here. Now I'm just kind of tickling the little guys there so we have them going. And so I have a boundary of that darker blue, right? Now it is quite a big jump from my dark blue to my darker, not darkest blue. I kind of call it. So let's decide on something here. Do we want to talk about percentages of light or percentage of dark? That's the question. Let's talk about percentages of light. So this is 100% on the white, and this is a 0% on the back side here. So this would be about a 0 or a 1 on our scale. Okay. Now I'm looking at this thing, and I know it's darkest right here. And then when it comes down here, it might change to be a little bit light. I think it is. Just right along that edge there, it's a little bit lighter. That's because of the cast shadow is darker traditionally. So I'm going to kind of, you can see I've left a little bit of a white line right there and a little bit of a white line right there as we've gone with that. And I'm going to have this go for a little bit. And maybe about this thick. How's that look? Does that look like a pretty good thickness? Now it depends on how quickly the change comes over the area. You know, does the value change quickly or slowly? I'm thinking this looks like pretty good. Maybe 1/4 to 1/2 inch of space for our initial application of our darkest blue, right? As it's coming across here. And this is the brush strokes are kind of leading it in the direction of the thing here. So I'm feeling pretty good about that as my first application. Now another thing you're going to need to have around your table when you are doing your painting is this. You're going to need to have some sort of a paper towel. So I'm going to transition now. I'm just going to fold this in half a couple times. I just need to clean this off a little bit. I don't need to get all of the paint out of it. So I'm just going to fold this over, pinch it, and kind of squeeze out my extra paint on that. Like I said, I don't have to do all of it, just a little bit. Now I'm going to jump to the next value. Seems pretty easy. And I guess so I'm looking at this one and I'm thinking this is going to go to about here is where it starts to transition. And I'm looking on here. This one is pretty solid on that blue going all the way across. So I'm just going to come here. And I'm going to paint in this area here. Because that's about how far I felt that it went. All right. And I can paint right up to where it is, you know, overlap it maybe a little bit. Now, as I mentioned, with a distance, as we look at this, we see it change from this one. And this would almost be a flat or segmented area, wouldn't it? As we look at this particular cylinder here. You know, it might be like an 8-sided or something cylinder if I utilize all of that. Now, also, remember I said that like right in here, there was a little bit of light, and that right here there was a little bit of light. I find a lot of times that it's easier to paint the different parts. Like you paint the cylinder, and then you paint the shadow, maybe paint the front facade here, maybe paint this other part. So you don't have to worry about painting the whole thing first. Some people do. Some people say every place you see this dark blue, let's put in the dark blue. And you can do that as well, and that works out pretty smooth. But you don't have to on those. Okay, so that's got some of my stuff hinted there where I want it. I'm going to take and now blending. I'm going to kind of blend as I go along on this sort of a thing. And that's the thing that people are kind of freak out about and they're not really quite sure of on those. I'm going to clean off my brush. Okay, just like we did with the other one, like this. And to blend your seams together, you have to paint along the seam. So this is where the seam is right here. And so I'm just going to start here, and I'm going to paint along the seam. And I'm going to pull it this way a little bit. And that's made it so it's not as quite a sharp edge. And now I'm going to take it and I'm going to move it over into the darker a little bit. And now I'm going to move it over into the lighter. And move it back into the darker. And I'm going to move back into the light a little bit more. And now you'll notice that that's become a blended paint between the dark and the light. And it comes because when you make your strokes along the seam, it blends it together a little bit. Let's see if I can get this to blend a little too. This one seems to be just a little bit. And going that way, let's rotate that one this way a little bit. Control is always an interesting thing. This one has a little bit of paint on it, so it's not mixing as well. It's just putting down the value that I have. Okay, and so I'm going to go here and hit that seam again. Now if I decide, you know, it blended really, really well. But you know, I wanted it darker in that area here. Well, let's make it darker. And so now I got some dark paint. And I'm just going to put that right on top. And then as I take it out into this area. I made that so it blends like that. And so that's the trick, is you paint the seam and you just kind of blend it together. And remember, I've built up some residue on there, and it's a little bit thick, and maybe I don't want it that thick on those, and I just kind of clean off. Now here's another deal. This one is a 5-value painting, right? 5 values to start out with. As such, there's probably more than that. When I learned this technique, I was actually using a 10-value palette, and that makes blending a lot easier as we try to make that happen. That needed to be a little rounded. I'm going to have to tickle this a little bit to get it. So that just needed more of a rounded edge on those. Okay, let's jump to the next thing, and then just so you can kind of see how the overall in this one. Now this is probably a bulk of the painting, right? Looks like it's going to go to about right here. Okay, this is my middle value. The hardest part on this painting stuff is remembering what value you are when you're painting this. And so I can paint right up to the edge, a little bit of overlap. And you'll notice I've painted quite a bit of this painting, and I haven't really even scratched the surface on how much paint I have. I still have a ton of it over here. The paint goes a long ways. Okay. Alright, I got that area layered down, and that looks about right, is what I'm doing there. I may come in with some lighter streaks. You probably noticed that on our original painting, or original drawing, there are some lighter streaks and stuff that were in there. Okay, then I'm going to come back here again. Remember, I got my brush and paint along the seam. I'm just going to use longer strokes on this one, like that. Since this is a longer cylinder, now I'm going into the darker color a little bit. So I'm going down. And I'm going back the other way. Well, there's my head in the way. Yeah, can't see what's going on, huh? Yeah, I like to be right on top of things. Woo! So I got another blend that kind of came across that area. That was pretty good. Feeling pretty confident about that. Yeah, a little bit. I want to blend that a little bit smoother. Anytime you see a noticeable break, clean off your brush and then just paint that area over again like that. And that'll make it blend together for you. One of my last little applications. This one does, I'm not going all the way to the white, and so this is going to be the end of it, right? And so this one from here, I might have a little bit of white on the edge, but it's mostly going to be this blue, the light blue. I do like to have, and the interesting thing of it is, sometimes depending on the value of the thing itself, right? So let's say that this is a light valued object. It's probably not going to go all the way to the black, black, black. It'll have some of the other on it, right? And so your value changes maybe in the percentage of light, maybe only could be if it was a light object, you might have white, so which is about our 10, and then the other one, the 80%er, and then you might have your 60%er, so you only have the 3. But I wanted to show you the range on what you can do on making this come together with those. So, okay, there's that one. Like I said, and this is mostly what I'm going to have. And so now once again, I'm going to take this here, and I'm just going to paint along the seam. And again, and again, and start to take it into the darker area. The seam again. I'm going to take it into the lighter area. had a little bit of residual on there, which is cool. Now I'm going to take that residual and take it into the value that was next to it, and so that I can make that smooth transition. This has a little bit of a darker to it, so I'm going to make that darker happen just on that bottom edge. Okay, clean this off a little bit. Can't paint backwards. I got to paint forwards. And so this I want to just come in here and tickle it in so that it has a good blend to it. Kind of like that. Okay, the last area I had, like I said, I wanted to just run the full spectrum for you guys. I wanted to go from the dark to the light, and there. Let's just put a little bit of a light edge on this one here, this way. And so let's put some white here, just on the edge. And you do have to paint the white paint in. You can't leave it blank. It's a different texture. It's a different feel for that. So you do have to account for it. Now the background is a gray, right? It's a light gray, but it's going to be a gray nonetheless. Okay, so we have that little bit of light. Clean up my brush. Once again, paint along the seam between the two. Just like that. Oops, my head's in the way. Like that. And so now we have the cylinder painted where you have your gradient effect going from dark to light all the way across by painting the seam and blending them across with your brush strokes as you go down. That's it. That's the key. That's the thing. That's what we're trying to do. Hopefully we'll be able to all accomplish that sort of a thing as we go forward. I got to mess with this down here a little bit more. This little transition. I want a little bit of dark on the edge, but I didn't want it to be noticeable. I wanted it to be natural. So right in there, it needs to blend just a little bit more. So that's blending a very small area versus a whole. Now you notice I got paint on my fingers, I got paint on my brush, I got paint on my paper towel. I probably have paint somewhere on this table too. Remember, at the end of the day, when it's time for the cleanup, make sure that you are cleaning up your table so you don't have any paint on it whatsoever. That's basically how you paint and blend your areas. Some of these are going to be more flat. Some of them may change values, just two values from like a 0% to a 20% across an area. Some of them may change all 5 values. This is from white all the way to black that we've done there on that value change. Pretty striking, really, as you start to look at it. So that's kind of a deal as we come to look at those. Now, let's say you want that. There's a white streak in our. Let's go back here. As I'm looking at it here, there's a little bit of a highlight streak in through here. If I want that in there, let's see how it works. I'm gonna get some white, and I got a little too much of white on that one. I can just apply that streak. Right over top of it. If my brush gets too much of the darker value in it, you can just come and put in there like there. So there I have my white streak. If I got a little bit too much of the other stuff, right, I can come back in here. This is the blue, the 80%er on that one. Just touch it in there. A little bit of the 80%er in here. Okay, now I'm going to go back into my 60%er in here because I needed that to blend a little bit more so that streak showed up. As that goes across there. So now I got my little bit of my white streak in there, right? And just added on that one. You're right, down here I need to do some stuff. I need to do some, that cast shadow area was too, that little area where it tucked down there was a little bit too much. Sometimes you got to look at it a little bit sideways to make sure you have your values right. And you can see them, sometimes the paint is so reflective that you can't see what you're doing. There we go. I like that much better. Okay, that is how you paint your different areas. Now this is a monochromatic painting, so the whole shoot match is going to be shades of blue or shades of green or red or whatever you're using to create your painting. And I'm just going to go ahead and continue to paint the whole thing from one piece to another, from one piece to another, and that sort of thing. And that is it.